I'm Dominic Collings, this is workshop video 5, and in this video I'm going to cover dust extraction in the workshop. So I said in the previous video that this is for my dust extractor. You notice I've got two little remote control adapters, which are for this remote control, so I can turn this extractor on remotely. I just keep it in my pocket or in my tool belt if I'm wearing one. That's a real handy thing to have. I originally bought a set of 3 of them from Maplin. They lasted about 3 weeks and then broke. This is from it was either Aldi or Lidl, and that was a pack of 4 and it was about £10–15. Been really good. They've lasted for a couple of years, no problems so far. Definitely worth having. 2 types of extractors. You get a low volume high pressure extractor, which is for machines like sanders which don't generate a lot of dust or a lot of material, but you need to get it away as quickly as possible. And you get high volume low pressure extractors like, say, a planer or a thicknesser, or a planer thicknesser, where you've got a lot of material, a lot of chip-ins, but getting that material away as quickly is not as important. So this is my low volume high pressure extractor. The big difference between the two systems is that they're nearly always brush motors, so they're very loud, which is a bit of a pain, but they've got lots of filtration, so they're good enough to work for cutting MDF. Axminster, if you look in their catalogue, they grade them as ratings 1, 2, 3 and 4, and it's only the 3 and the 4s really which are categorised as being suitable for MDF. This has got treble filtration, so it's got like a paper canister over the motor, over that's another paper overlaid filter, and then there's a fabric filter which you can see just sticking out the top. This is exactly the same as a Record DX5000, it's just in different colours. It was probably Draper, it's unbranded, I don't really know why it's unbranded, it was an eBay purchase. It's exactly the same. So it's twin motors, and what I've done is, originally it was one plug socket going into the machine and you just had to switch them, 1 motor or 2 motors on the top. I've rewired it so you've got 2 separate plug sockets, and I'll go into why I've done that in a bit. But what I've got is I've gone to 2.5-inch pipe, even though it originally started as a 4-inch pipe. And the reason I've done that is because I've gone for a dust extraction tubing system sold by quite a few people now. I think I bought this one from Rutland's. I think Axminster do it now, D&M Tools, they also do it. And it's just a 2.5-inch wide kit, 63mm, something like that. I bought 1 kit and it wasn't sufficient to go all the way around the garage, so I ended up buying 2. It's pretty good value for money. I haven't had any static build up, I've got no earthing on it. A lot of people recommend that you do, never had any problems with it. It does get dust at the top, but then again everything does in this garage, so whether that's attributable solely down to like static in the pipes, I don't know, but like I say, never had a problem. Every down branch, I've tried to do a down branch to every pair of tools, and then I've doubled up on the blast gate. So it goes up over the door, it goes down to my bandsaw, and it goes up and over, straight down the middle of the room so it can get to my table saw, and over to the other side. It also takes on the my chop saw and the router table. If you're going to do any kind of length like that, you really need the double motor one at a minimum. That's the double one, and it copes just about. They used to do a treble one, even better, but it's mega noisy, it's really loud, so it's a definite consideration if you're going to go for an extractor. Between the two, if you can only afford one, go for the noisy one, because the filtration's better on it. It will do planers and thicknesses and stuff just, it's not the greatest at it, probably picks up 70–75% of the chips and the rest go on the floor. But they're good for sand and they're good for everything else, whereas the other bagged one isn't. If you try and plug in, I mean it's much quieter, but if you try and plug that into a 2.5-inch hose, it just deflates, just like that. So you can't really run power tool hosing off an extractor like that, but they're very good for the planer, for the thickness. It probably picks up 90–95% of the chips. Still get a bit on the floor, the blades kick some stuff out, not much you can do about that. So on that particular extractor in the corner, which is bagged, there's a couple of problems with that. But the bag's great in that it's got big capacity. You can work for quite a while before you need to empty it. If it was a static drum one, which they do exactly the same just without the bag, obviously that fills up really quick, and I did have one of those quite a while ago and I found you were just emptying it all the time. So the bag one for me was the way to go, but the disadvantage is obviously the bags are easy to rip. Now the bags mainly rip if you're trying to run two motors at the same time down a tool which has got a small capacity hose. For example, the chop saw here. So at the back of the chop saw, I've just got a regular hoover hose. You see hoover hoses everywhere, and how I've got these basically is whenever I've gone to tip, whenever I've thrown anything out, I've had a scavenge round, and whenever there's been an old hoover or old vacuum cleaner or anything like that, old extractor in the skip, I've just had a quick word with the lads, and you know, they usually give you the nod, and I've been able to like lift a load of hoses from the recycling centre. So that's where I get all of these pipes from. On the chop saw, if that's the only blast gate that I've got open and I try and turn the extractor on dual motor, 9 times out of 10 it'll just rip the bag straight off. So the remote control and wiring it in, so I've got each motor on the extractor wired in independently. I can just turn one motor on. So I'll turn one motor on if I'm just using the mortar set, or if I'm just using the chop saw. But if I'm using, say, the router table, which is 2.5 inch all the way, I can go full 2 motor with that. I've got quite a few blast gates on this. The blast gates on these kits, there are a bit of a problem. The big problem that you've got is basically the top of the blast gate, it's a dead end. So dust and debris gets into the blast gate, and as you push it up, it all accumulates in the top. It stops it from closing properly, and very quickly you'll end up finding that instead of going all the way shut, they start not closing properly. So what you get is you get leakage. So you can close like say 5 or 6 blast gates and they're not closed properly. There's a little gap in all of them, and that significantly reduces the effectiveness of your dust extraction. Now what I used to do to cope with that is I used to get a regular piece of electrical wire, pull out the earthen wire, which is quite stiff, or use like a coat hanger, bend it at right angles, pull the pipe off, go around each one trying to scrape up into the corners, and that was a big pain. It would take ages, you're always cutting your fingers and stuff like that, no good. So what I came up with is I had a couple of spare just little storage pots like this. Now I wrote this as a tip in Good Woodworking a few months ago, a few issues ago, maybe 5 or 6 issues ago. So what I did basically was I took a hacksaw to one of these and I cut out the right angled sections, and what I ended up with some little bits like that. And what I've done is I've coated the ends full of silicone. So on the blast gates at the top, which you'd have to kind of hook over to have a look at the top, but what I've done is I've cut the top off. So now there's a slot all the way in there, and I use these little bits to fill the gap. So what it means is every now and again when it comes to maintenance to keep the extraction system in good working order, I pull out an airline, I have the extractor running, I open the blast gate, I pull out the top, and I just give that a good blowout with an airline. And that's so much easier, so much quicker. You wouldn't believe how much time I used to spend with wire trying to scrape into the bottom of the blast gates. The main reason why that happens is because a lot of the 4-inch wide dust extraction stuff, a lot of the metal stuff, it's like whenever it goes to a dust extraction port, it's a Y, whereas these are all T's. Which isn't the best way of doing it, to be honest. You try and avoid 90-degree bends whenever you can, which is why I'm not doing it linked down like a drop down to every single machine. But you know, that's the way it goes. So that's a really good tip. It costs pennies. So if you ever come across something like that and you're thinking about, you've either got this dust extraction now and you suffer from it, and most of you probably will, because I know a few people with these kits, that's always a problem. But if you get any kind of like plastic pot like that, keep it, just cut out the strips. I think I've got something like 6 per pot. And the ones that usually get clogged, that's what I've done with them. One last thing to point out, this is a really good little accessory. Now I've got a very long piece of hoover hose here, which I just wrap around this drop down section which holds all the pipe and holds a bit of wiring and whatnot. And it's where the crown guard's kind of dust extraction wise is wired into. So I've got a long hoover hose there which I use for all of my handheld power tools. Now on the end of that, it's tricky to see, but you saw in the other video with Henry where I had to tape it onto my random orbit sander because it kept falling out. That is a big problem on Henry. Festool do this little add-on end. I'll try and figure out a way of putting the serial number down on the bottom of the screen, so that should come up momentarily. So it's a little accessory. It's a replacement end for Festool's regular extractors, and that's all you need. And what I've got is I've got that taped on, and that covers for my random orbit sander basically the extraction tube and that, this fits into the extraction tube, and for the domino slot fits in the inside. It's very grippy, it's quite rubbery, don't really have any problems with that at all, you know, it doesn't fall out. So because this is quite long, I can reach the full extent of the outfeed table. Like I say, I tend to use this area as a layout table. So this can get all the way to all sides, it gets to my workmate, and for any of the festival stuff I've also got a wire in as well. So that's like really, really handy. So I've covered both types of extractors. The large extractor that I've got here, I bought it at the same time and off the same guy who I bought the open-ended drum sander off, so I haven't actually had it that long. So I've gone for about 5 or 6 years in this workshop, just running off the low volume high pressure extractor, the noisy one in the corner, and it's coped pretty well. I have had a bit of mess on the floor at the end of projects that I've had to clear up, but it's coped with pretty much everything I could throw at it. I got the opportunity to pick up this. It's an electric Beckham kind of high volume, low pressure extractor. It was going for £50, and I thought I'd give it a punt. I'd have a punt at it and see how I got on with it. And the bottom line is, I only really use this on me planer thicknesser, on me thicknesser and on me planer, and it's a huge difference. It's a lot quieter, and it does a much better job of picking up the chippings. The noisy extractor in the corner really struggles with the amount of waste that the table saw produces. So originally I did have the 2.5 inch extraction coming up and down this wall, and I was trying to run the planer and the thicknesser off the 2.5 inch pipe. It would get blocked quite a bit, wasn't really good. The 4 inch pipe, no problems at all. So I've actually removed that length of 2.5 inch pipe, and that's obviously reduced my overall length for the other system, for the 2.5 inch system, which goes to every machine, and my extraction is much improved as a result. What I'm going to do is, I'll either keep this extractor, I'll probably get a slightly beefier, something like a 2000 cubic metre per minute or whatever extractor, and I'll run a 4 inch tube up and over, and that one will go to the table saw, because that's just the best option. But like I say, if you can only afford one, go for the noisy one, because that covers everything. But if you can afford the pair, definitely worth a shot having both. So that about rounds it up for extraction, and I'll see you in the next video.